Minis. Most of them are small. Some of them are even smaller than that. And today I'm going to do an incredibly brief primer, get it, on how to paint them, at least the way I know how to paint them anyway. Mini painting can be as incredibly simple or as mind-blowingly complicated as you like, but here's how I know how to do it. Before we get started, I want to show you very quickly how to make something called a wet palette. A wet palette is super useful, especially if you're using acrylic paints. Its whole job is to keep your acrylic paints from drying out. It makes your paints wetter longer, and it's very useful, and it's super cheap to make. All you need is a paper plate, some artisanal handcrafted paper towels, and non-waxed parchment paper. Take the plate, pour water on the paper towels, and then put the parchment paper on top, and you're good to go. You can spend who knows how much money on an official wet palette, but this is the exact same thing. An official one just comes with a little tray to hold it in, and it's probably going to use like an incredibly thin sponge instead of paper towels or something, and then it's just parchment paper again on top. So you could save yourself a fair amount of money by buying just these super cheap supplies and have enough to make infinite number of wet palettes whenever you need them. Pretty much every model you're going to paint needs to be primed. Some models come pre-primed. Some models, like if you're taking them directly off a 3D printer, need to be primed with pretty much any paint. You can use spray paint or you can brush on paint. I happen to have this bottle of brush on primer that came with my pack of paints, but you can use literally anything. It doesn't have to be called primer. You can just pick up like a thing of yellow paint that you already have or something, whatever, and just prime it. Basically, all you're trying to do is create a layer for the next layers of paint to stick on. Super handy is to keep your paints, I don't want to say as thin as possible. They shouldn't be like ink-like, but you're going to want to keep your paints super thin. As the thinner your paints are, you can build up your colors through multiple layers of paint, and it's ultimately going to look a lot more nuanced than if you just took a big fat paintbrush and slapped a super heavy coat of whatever paint color you're using down on the model. So just try and keep your paints thin. If you need to test how thin your paints are, a lot of people when painting minis will use the back of their thumb or their fingernail or something instead of just like rubbing it off on a paper towel and removing the paint on the brush, you know. My general flow for painting minis is prime the mini and then cover each part in its base colors. For this dwarf, there's going to be a skin color, there's going to be a pants color, a cloth color for the bandana, and then a bunch of little metallic colors for the metal pieces like the bands and the gun and stuff like that. And then you're going to use something called a wash. My friend Tiff refers to this as being skill in a bottle. Basically, all it is a super ultra watered down paint. Try to aim for something that's more watery than ink. If you are making this yourself, they do sell pre-made washes, but you can pretty much make it with any color paint that you already have. You just got to water it down a lot. This one is a dark brown, and then you just basically cover the entire model in it. Try not to go too overboard, but its purpose is to just get in all the nooks and crannies and the cracks and stuff and add a dark shade there to give the appearance of depth, and it really does bring the model to life. It's super cool. Then afterwards, I normally go back over with the original base colors and just try and add some variation, covering up some of those places we just made darker, like the places that look a little too muddy, you know, reintroduce the original color. And then on top of that, you'll do something like edge highlighting or highlighting in general with brighter versions of the same color or pure white, whatever you want to do. And it just adds a little more extra character. And that's pretty much it. You can varnish your models when you're done. You can make them as complicated or as simple as you want. But that's pretty much it. You got yourself a finished model. And now, if you'll excuse me, I have an insanely large mini that I have to start work on.